beautiful people, and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to subtract integers. Now, integers are all of the numbers that are whole numbers that also could be positive, could be negative, and also could be zero. Okay, so we're talking about positive numbers, subtracting negative numbers, and the combination of both. All right, the first thing I want to introduce you to is counters. Now, we've used counters before, but I actually haven't physically shown you counters. So I have a counter here. These are, let's flip that around. These are our plus counters. There we go, plus counters. And then we also have our minus counters. So the plus counters are going to be our positive representation, and then we have these minuses for our negative representation. Just a brief review about zero pairs. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and make sure to watch that video. A zero pair is one plus and one minus combined. So for example, I have one positive, I have one negative, and the combination of both of these, this equals zero. So for example here, how many zero pairs do I have? Here's one zero pair. Take a positive, take a negative. Two zero pairs. Take a positive, take a negative. Three zero pairs. So let me put them here. Here's one zero pair, two zero pairs, three zero pairs. Take a negative, take a positive. Four zero pairs. Negative, positive. Five zero pairs. Negative, positive. Six zero pairs. So what we had in front of us is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. And what are we left over with? We're left over with -1. Okay, so how many negatives do I have? I have one negative. So if we were to say how many zero pairs? 6 zero pairs. What is left over? One negative, or you can say -1. All right, that was our brief review. Let's go ahead and I'm going to put these off to the side real quick, separate them, and we're going to talk about what it means to subtract integers. Okay, to subtract two integers, let me zoom this in. You can do this in two ways, okay? But I'm going to show you what our rules are. So if I have, do I want to do this? No, yes, I do. So let's say to subtract your integers, you can rewrite as an addition problem. For example, here are our rules, okay? Whenever you have a positive minus a positive, what you can do is you can always change the sign. I have a positive and a negative positive. So this could be rewritten as I have a positive and I have a negative. I have a, let me do this, negative, and I have a negative. That can be rewritten always. Change the sign in the middle. Let's actually write an acronym for this. We're going to do same, change, change. You can also say keep. We're going to change to addition, and then we're going to change to the opposite. So if we do that, we're going to keep the first one, change the second one, and change to the opposite. So if my opposite is a minus, I'm going to change it to a plus. Let's try that again with another one. I have a positive minus a negative. Keep, change to a positive, and I'm going to change to the opposite. And again, these are pluses. And then the last one I have is a negative minus a positive. I'm going to keep, I'm going to change, and I'm going to, I'm going to keep, I'm going to change to a positive, and I'm going to change to the opposite. And this is what we have. All right. Just so you can recall, if you watched our previous video, how to add integers, when we're adding, there's two things that we know. If we're adding two positives, our final answer will always be positive. This one here, it says two negatives. If I'm adding the same sign, it's going to be whatever that sign is. So two negatives added together, this will always be final answer. Will always be negative. Okay, so if you're adding two positive numbers, your final answer will be positive. If you're adding two negative numbers, your final answer will be negative. Now, what about these? If you're adding a positive and a negative, and you're adding a negative and a positive, these answers will vary. Let's say this answer will be the sign which value is more. So I'll put a little thinking bubble here, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So you're going to ask yourself a question. Do I have more positive, or do I have more negative? Then question number 2, how much more? So whenever you're deciding for your final sign, if you're adding a negative and a positive, or a positive and a negative, it's do I have more positives or do I have more negatives? And how much more do I have of those positives and of those negatives? All right, let's do some examples. Let's start out with some small numbers so I can show you how to use zero pairs here. I'm going to just put a little squiggly line so we can, there you go. Let's do example 1. Again, we're doing subtraction, but we're not really doing subtraction because we're going to be rewriting it. So let's say I have 3 minus 6. What do I have? I have a positive minus a positive. I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. This is going to be your cheat sheet. I have a positive minus a positive. Where's a positive minus a positive? Positive minus a positive. We're going to keep the same sign. We're going to change it to a positive. We're going to change that second number to a negative. So I'm going to keep, change, change. So I'm going to keep, I'm going to change. And so do you see how I have that? I used to have a positive 6, but now I'm flipping that sign. So now I have a minus 6. So answers will be the sign whose value is more, or which value is more. So do I have more positives or negatives? So let's take a look. I have 3. Whoop. Sorry, guys, I keep moving papers around today. I have 3. What kind of 3? 3 positives. So here, 1, 2, 3. And how many negatives do I have? I have 6 negatives. So when you're doing this, always look at the sign in front to know if your value is positive or negative. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So how much more do I have? Well, here's where I'm going to go back into our thinking bubble and write down think zero pairs. So I'm going to take away all my zero pairs and see what I'm left out with. So positive and a negative, that's 1 zero pair. Positive and a negative, that's 1 zero pair. Positive and a negative, that's 1 0 pair. So I have 1 0, I have 2 zeros, 3 zeros. So how many is 3 zeros? If I have 3 of nothing, I have nothing, so that goes away. What am I left over with? I'm left over with 3, but I have 3 of what left over? I don't have 3 of puppies, I don't have 3 waters, I don't have 3 pens. I have 3, 1, 2, 3 negatives. So again, the sign always goes in front of the number. Let's go ahead and draw this out. So here's my thinking bubble once again. So at home, if you don't have counters, how will that look like? We're just going to draw out 3 positives. We're drawing out 6 negatives, and you want to do it if you have it, if you can, right next to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives. We're going to circle our 0 pairs, and we're going to actually cross them out. We're going to take them away. Sometimes you'll see me doing it as arrows. We're physically taking a positive and a negative, and then we're taking it away with that arrow. So what do I have left over? I have 1, 2, 3 left over. What are they? They are negatives. Therefore, I have 3 negatives. So 3 minus 6 is equal to negative 3. Try example number 2. Let's do negative 44 minus a negative 14. Sometimes you're going to see these in parentheses. Sometimes you will not. So just kind of pay attention of where your signs are. Remember, the sign is always in front. And then I'm going to show you a trick. This is what I was taught when I was in school, and I promise you I still use this, and you will see me use this method all school year. Whenever you see 2 negatives next to each other, and you can circle them, that's a quick way to say that these 2 negatives make a positive. But you can only use this rule if you can circle those 2 negatives. If you cannot circle those 2 negatives, so here's a thinking bubble. Lost my pencil there for a second. If you have, let's say, negative 14 minus 3, notice that I have 2 negatives, and if I circle this, I cross out a number. If you cross out a number or circle that number, 2 negatives do not make a positive. You have to be able to circle them without crossing out that number. So like warning. All right, so we're going to keep, change. So here's the thing. If you do this method, don't change your plus. You've already converted into a plus, so don't change it back. So we have negative 44 plus 14. I have a negative plus a positive. Looking at my cheat sheet here, a negative plus a positive. What do we need to figure out? We need to figure out which one has more and how much more do we have. So looking at the numbers, do I have more positives or negatives? Which one is it? If I was to use my counters and I was to do 14, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the space. But if I was to do 14 positives and 44 negatives, which one would have more? And hopefully you said that there would be 44 negatives. The quantity 44 is much greater than the quantity of 14. So we would have 44 negatives, positives, 14. How much more would I have? So if I was to draw this out again, I'm not going to do it, but if I had negative, I'm going to put a dot, dot, dot. If I have negative 44 and I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just want to keep it the same. And I had positive 14, how much more would I have? So here's a kind of a trick that you can do. Again, we're doing a lot of thinking bubbles today. You're going to, if the signs are different, you're going to subtract big minus small. Then add the sign that had the greater number. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to take the big number, which is 44. I'm going to subtract the smaller number, which is 14. 4 take away 4 is 0. 4 take away 1 is 3. So this is step 1. So this is step 2. This is step 1. Then add the sign that had the greater number. So which one had more? We already discussed that we have more negatives and less positives. So we have more negatives. So our answer is negative 30. You want to put your answers in a box so it's easier for the teacher to see what your answers are. All right, we're going to do that again because I kind of just threw that trick out to you. Let's try it again. Example 3. I have 16 minus 89. Again, look at the sign in front. So I have a positive and I have a negative. Keep, change. So what do I have? I have positive 16 and I have a negative 89. In your head, you should already be asking yourself which one has more. Do I have more positives or do I have more negatives? 89 is a lot more than 16. We're not looking at which side of the number line it's on. We're just saying which number is bigger. So 89 is bigger, so we have more negatives. So we know our final answer will be negative. So let's use our trick. I'm going to bring that trick right over here so I can see it. What's step number 1? Subtract the big number minus the small number. What's the big number? 89. What's the small number? 16. 9, take away 6. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm going to use my fingers. Here's 9, 4, 5, 6. I'm left with 3. 8, take away 1. That is 7. So that is step 1. Step 2 is add the sign that had the greater number. So we already said what's the greater number? We have more negatives. The final answer will be negative. So for step 2, our final answer will be negative. So I'm going to go back to my original problem and say my final answer is negative 73. Let's do one more. And I want to focus on these because it's a little bit more difficult than just adding two numbers and adding two negatives, two positives and two negatives. But let's do a quick example. So let's do example 4. Let's do something quick like 10 plus 15. What do we have? We have a positive. We're adding another positive to it. Our final answer will be positive. 10 plus 15. Here's 10. Here's 15. We're going to add those two together. 0 plus 5 is 5. 1 plus 1 is 2. So our final answer is a positive 25. Sorry, you guys couldn't see that. Let's do example 5. I'm doing these rather quickly. So if I have a, let's say, negative 3 minus 8, I'm going to say, what do I have? I'm going to keep, change, change. So I have, I'll show you another way to think of it, but here's negative 3 and negative 8. Do you see how the 3 has the negative in front and the 8 has the negative in front? So this is how you know that you're going to have negative 3 and negative 8. Again, let me show you. 3 has a negative in front and 8 has a negative in front. So you know that you're going to have a negative 3 and a negative 8. So I have a negative plus a negative. Looking at my cheat sheet here, negative plus a negative, the final answer will always be negative. So we know our final answer is negative. So we're going to add the numbers together. 8, 9, 10, 11. We're just adding like we usually are. The only difference is that we are throwing in that negative in our final answer. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll call it good. Let's do this one. Negative 45 minus 83. All right. Here's the negative in front. Here's the negative in front. So that means I have negative 45 and I have a negative 83. Notice I have a negative plus a negative. That means that my final answer will be negative. Again, how do I know that? I'm looking at my cheat sheet. A negative plus a negative, final answer will be negative. So then what do? We just add the numbers. You've already accounted for the sign, so now we just add the numbers. 45 plus 83, 5. So when you're adding, it doesn't matter if you have the bigger number on top and the smaller number on the bottom or vice versa, because you're adding. When you're subtracting, that matters. So when you're subtracting, make sure that you have the bigger number on top. If you want to stay consistent, always put the bigger on top, even when you're adding. That is your choice, but make sure that you separate the subtraction and the addition. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can't see it, but maybe I'm using my fingers. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It may be easier to do the, go with the bigger, so like 83 plus 45. It'd be easier. 3 plus 5, 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So you can go either way. So then put that number right next to your sign that you have already figured out, and that is your final answer. All right, beautiful people, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If I've made a mistake, I apologize. Just let me know where the mistake occurred so that way we both can learn from my mistake. Make sure that you have your cheat sheet, your little cheat sheet written out. This is your cheat sheet. These are your rules. Make sure that you know how to apply your rules. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. As always, I am always here for you. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.